Good evening, Blood Bowl fans, and welcome back to another episode of Superfed Presents the REBBL REL Divisions 1, 2, and 3. I'm your host, Superfed TV, and we are going to continue with the last of the mid-season reviews. It's taken me a while to get this out. Didn't realize 3 hours was going to be a lot more work than I thought. So, we are going to finish off with Division 1 coverage at the mid-season point, which is actually a little bit past that now. And then we will do the last week. I'll do another episode this weekend to try and get really fully all caught up on my recaps. So, as per the last couple episodes, the format for this is just going to be going through every single one of the teams, and then taking a look at the leaderboard and talking a little bit about the playoffs and what the potential winners and outcomes going to look like. I do not have a guest host today. Again, I'm just recording this kind of late to make sure I get this out because I am behind. So first up, we've got the Pastry Pests, former champions on this team. They've taken a couple licks. They've lost a couple players, and then immediately got 2 movement ups on their gutter runners to replace the 1 movement up gutter runner that died. So I don't think anyone in Division 1 is thrilled to see these gutter runners here, although they're not totally developed yet. Still looking for that sure feet to get that natural one-turner, a little bit more reliability. And this one's just not as good as the other one was. It doesn't have 2 heads. It doesn't have leap or agility 5. So it's not the most reliable one-turner out there. But it is an option that Luminous now has. And he doesn't have to baby him the same way he had to baby his previous one-turner. Because of the armor value 6 that he took in the playoffs a couple seasons ago that he won. Storm Vermin wise, though, they're a little dinged up. We've got Vicious Nilla, who is injury wise just an agility bust, no niggles or anything, so that's good. That it's not worse. Unfortunately, at Agi 2, on a piece that does do a lot of blitzing. The problem is you do have to dodge him out sometimes, and going with an Agi 2 dodge is not very reliable, even with Pro. So that makes things a little bit sketchy there. And then the other Storm Vermin, Sprinkled Hava, he's got a niggle. So he's movement bust and niggled. That is a big bullseye. The strength up helps a little bit, but really it's all about the positioning and trying to avoid hits on that piece whenever you can. And he's now got grab, which is a recent addition, I believe, so that's a little bit of development there. But at the same time, I mean, you can't really fire this piece because of how useful it is at this point. You just kind of got to go make the best of it, even though it's got that niggle and it's a strength up, so you probably really wouldn't fire it. But you make the most of what you got. Talked already about this. The gutter runners, 1 fresh one here, so we probably had another death recently, or stat bust, I should say. And overall, this is at 1800 TV. You can see where it's kind of stacked among a couple pieces here, but it's still a pretty trim team for Skaven, considering they were hovering around 2000. I want to say at the start of the season. So being able to get inducements against some of these bigger teams that they're going up against, like Sace's Chaos, for example. The inducements can do a lot of work for this rat team. Overall, the total career record of this team is 58, 20, and 18, and that just is a testament to how good of a coach Luminous is, as well as, Skaven. They lose pieces, but they win games in exchange for it. This season, they are 3-2 and 3, which is right in the middle of the pack and still actually able to make the playoffs if they get a little bit of a hot streak. And this is pretty much how Luminous tends to play the season. At the start of the season, he just tries to survive and get wins where he can and stay in the hunt. And then near the end of the season, he starts taking risks in order to make the playoffs and starts coming up with some wins at the expense of some of his pieces. Big matchups that he has played. Biggest one here, 4-1 win against Men in Tights, but they are in last place, so more of just beating up on the underdog there. New Year Norse losing 2-5 to the Pastry Pest is probably the biggest statement, and that is against one of the top teams here. Additionally, a 3-1 win over Animal Farm. That is another playoff contender that Luminous was able to get a hold of, and really it's just a tough matchup for Sace in general. So, big loss there against Cheese Tactics this week, but from what I saw, it was, just about every time a rat got hit, they were getting removed from the pitch, so there's not much he could do. Moving on to Menentites, who we just talked about. They are resting at the bottom of the leaderboard right now, I believe. This is the Wood Elf team that's, looks like a Wood Elf team that's been in this division a little while. Little banged on, a little beat up. Looks like the War Dancer here just took a movement bust. Well, actually, it looks like he's had that for a while, but he's just missing next game. And let's check out this catcher. So they just recently took a movement bust. Still, though, even at movement 7, when you've got Wrestle, Tackle, Dauntless, and Strip Ball, this is a piece that you're going to be keeping. Movement bust isn't the end of the world there. It's still going to be a great ball hawk for you. Maybe get Leap on it next. I don't know. To me, that seems like a good move, but you do already have one Leap with Strip Ball at Agi 4, so I guess it's not the end of the world. And maybe this one ends up being the Leap piece, even though he's got Block on there, so this is probably more the one-turner. Looking at probably Sidestep and Sure Feet next. One of the strengths of the team is the thrower with accurate, strong arm, safe pass, dodge, and sure hands. That is literally everything that you could want on a Wood Elf thrower for the sole purpose of offense. Sure, he's missing block, but I think I'd rather have, safe throw than block. The way that you, if you're going to make the throwing game happen, interceptions can be reduced quite a bit by having that Agi 4. Additionally, he's got a couple guard pieces, which is nice for the Wood Elves. That makes it a little bit easier to generate those 2-die blocks. Overall, though, I would say he's kind of lacking in the block or wrestle department compared to some of the other Wood Elf teams that we've seen in the other divisions. Just not a lot of wrestle except for really one piece, so that is on the lighter side. Last thing we'll talk about is the tree, which is Woody. Woody's got block, grab, guard, and break tackle as the last skill. Break tackle is interesting on a tree. I suppose if it is ever any point in time in contact with a cage, you might be able to just dive right into the middle of the cage and, get a hit on the ball carrier. Otherwise, I guess you could also use it to reposition a little bit. 2 movement's not great, but every once in a while, I'm sure he can get a use out of it. And there's just not that many other good natural skills after grab and guard, because it already comes with stand firm, and he's got blocks. So what is he going to get piling on? No, you're not going to get. So I guess I understand where break tackle comes from. He's already got thick skull, like literally all the strength skills he's probably already got. At least anything that's useful. Maybe you go multi-block. Maybe I don't think you're ever going to use it, but you do have 2 other guard line elves. So if somebody puts 3 people next to each other on the front line, you could potentially set up to get multi-block out of that. He's got 6 SPP to the next level, so if he doesn't roll a stat or a double, it's something to consider. But all in all, that's a very healthy tree considering it's in Division 1 for as long as it's been there. Last thing I forgot to look at was the record in the history. Overall record for the team is 17, 13, 26. They've been on the losing end of late. This season, 1-0-7. Last season, they were 4-2-7. And the season before that, they were 7-3-3. So this could have been a playoff run, but yeah, that was Div 2. So Div 1 has not been kind to the Wood Elves, which, when you think about it, makes plenty of sense because there's just so much bash up here, and they know how to build against elves. This season, looking to see any big matches. They did win 1 game. Which one was that? That was against the Knights Who Say Knee. 2-1 win there against Mistays. Mistays is starting to come back into playoff contention, so this match could be one that comes back to haunt him. Everything else is fairly close except for the one against Lumi. So it looks like just a couple balls are dropping out of reach of these Wood Elves. But in the coming weeks, I do look for them to kind of bounce back. They've got just about, Wood Elves always have everything they need to make a play and make things happen, especially with inducements, and the Wizard, and he's got Strip Ball. So the only downside is most of the teams in Division 1 are either going to have Sure Hands or a way to at least deal with Strip Ball in one way or another. Next up, we've got USS Sulaco, coached by Eisenmike, the Lizard team that is always a little beat up, but usually is able to pull wins out of crazy situations. Well, now it's a little bit more beat up than I think it's ever been. The Croxagore went down, or Bloxagore, I should say. And after really Frost got fired in the offseason, it's pretty much just been downhill since there. He's not really been able to make up the work that Frost did in the past. Not having a tackle on any of the Saurus is a big deal. Not having a break tackle Saurus is a bit of a big deal. And the teams he's up against are just flat out stacked. It seems like every single week he's going up against a Claw team or a team with more Mighty Blow than he has. So he's paying for it. Looking at the actual pieces themselves, Gorman, great skink. He's got block now, had sidestep and diving tackle. Would have got cycled if he didn't get that block, so it came at the right time. Seems like that was a recent addition there. And he's going to have to rely on Gorman this week because Pharaoh is missing next game. Pharaoh, of course, is a phenomenal piece. However, he's niggled. And on a skink, stunty, that is rough. Just makes you very reliable, or very likely to get removed from the game. But even still, it's worth it at Agi 5, catch, sidestep, sprint. There's just so many things that you can do with this piece. So makes sense that he's there. He's a good one-turn threat. Keeps him safe as best he can. You can see he's still gaining plenty of SPP after making Legend. And that's partly because there's just not a lot of other skinks that are not loners. So see if we can get Bishop a level in the next game. Saurus-wise, he does have the 2 Blodge Firms Saurus, which I like, but now he's just lacking guard, which when you're lacking the guard, you're lacking the other block, you're lacking the skills, you've got missing Saurus. It's just all adding up to be a rough time for this team. I do want to point out they have the Weather Dome. I didn't check, or the Magic Dome. I didn't check the stadium enhancements for the other 2 coaches. Maybe I'll go back and do that really quick. After this one. Overall record for the team, though, is 42, 11, and 28. This season, he's 2, 4, and 3, so still hanging in there, getting wins despite the just rough season start that he's had. Last season, he was 5, 0, and 8, so that's kind of a back-to-back rough time there. But before that, he was 7, 3, 3, and he made the playoffs in Division 1. So I know there's talk that he's probably looking at re-rolling finally. This is a lot of games to be played with this Lizard team against some of the top teams in the league. Makes sense that he might be considering that. Looking at the overall match history here for some of the big matches. First of all, this one was big. A 1-0 win against Cheese Tactics. Out-strength, out-skilled as far as pieces go. But certainly not on the coaching side of things. Eisenmike was able to get a huge defensive stop against the Orcs, which they did not expect, and then of course being able to score with the few skinks that he had remaining gives him the win there. So good job on that one against a coach that was looking like they might be in the playoff picture. This one makes them possibly knocked out and opens up the door for a lot of other teams. Another big win was I know they had one other win. I guess that was against Men in Tights. The draws against New Day Co-op and Animal Farm actually could have an impact as well, drawing the Chaos teams, but losing to the Skaven teams. And it looks like he still has to play Lumi, so that might be another really tough match for him as well. But basically, any team, the Necro, the Rats, any team other than the Elves that is really, a hybrid movement team is going to be able to stay in this. And then a 0-0 draw against the other Lizard team is also a pretty good stop for USS Sulaco, considering how much of a tear the Tadpoles were on, and They were at the top of the leaderboard, and they still are. Good 0-0 draw there. I mentioned I was going to go back and look at the stadiums. No stadium for the Wood Elves. That makes sense. They're usually really expensive pieces, so not going to get it. And same with Lumi. Lumi'd rather spend his money on reserves, which makes plenty of sense. All right, let's move on to New Day Co-op, coached by Kool-Aid Convoy. Kool-Aid took last season off. Before that, he was in the finals of the Super Bowl against Luminous. So this is definitely an experienced coach with a phenomenal team. However, he recently suffered the loss of a Chaos Warrior. So that's rough at this point in the season. He's going to try and feed SPP on. Looks like he got a touchdown on him already. Avon Bloxdale III, placing the second of his namesake. The main Chaos Warrior everybody knows, though, is Marlo Smashfield. This is a claw palm tackle piece. So extremely useful. You can see the amount of SPP on that thing is just continually going up. We have one legend already with Weebay, who is the killer of the team. Doesn't have piling on, but he has pro tackle and the movement up, and he doesn't really need to pile on. He still is consistently removing pieces. And Bodhi, just one SPP shy of making legend number 2 for this team. The primary ball carrier with agility up, 2 heads, sure hands, and tackle. But he doesn't just carry the ball. With Agi up and the 2 heads in tackle, he's also blitzing quite a bit, and he's kind of a good ball hawk and ball threat when Prop Joe, Wrestle Tackle Mighty Blow, is otherwise occupied. Or, as the agility bust here kind of implies, this piece gets targeted first. And that's one thing that you can do when you play against Chaos, is if you can remove their ball threats, or their sackers, like the Wrestle Tackle pieces, because they just don't have that many of them usually, it puts them in a vulnerable spot. So, something to consider. And it looks like another killer in the making out of Michael Lee. So this is probably one of the more killer Chaos teams in the league. But that's not to say he doesn't have other skills and stat ups. It's just an 1810 TV. Pretty trim. Chaos team makes sense, though. You're down 100 there, so that would be 1900 normally for all these skills. Yeah, there's a lot to like here. There's a lot to like. Quite the opposite of some of the other Chaos teams that we looked at in the lower divisions, which are, a lot of doubles, a lot of stat ups, a lot of, extra mutation skills. This one's just clean cut, a little bit of guard, a lot of kill. Stadium enhancement, they have a security gate, so there's no riots and pitch invasions. I don't hate that on Chaos at all. Overall record of the team, 42-10-13. This is an efficient winning team considering it's Chaos. You don't see the huge amount of losses to build up like you do with some of the other Chaos teams, which again just is a testament to the skill of this coach. Very impressive. This season they are 4-4-0, and that puts them in the top of the division and most likely to make the playoffs. Season 5, the last time they played, they were 7-4-2. Looking at the match history, big wins all around the board, of course, as they are 4-0. The ones that stand out to me, this 1-0 against Pastry Pest, I wouldn't read too much into. This was early on in the season, as we talked about. Luminous wasn't really going to go all out to get a win here. He just wanted to survive it. He did survive it, but he also got a lot of removals against him. So it was well played by Kool-Aid, not to take anything away. He completely controlled the match the whole time. But if these two met in the playoffs, there's no telling how that would go this time. Or at least I wouldn't rely on this as an indicator of that. But it is still a huge win against two of the top coaches in the whole division. The other one against the defending champ. So again, just a tough back-to-back week here, but another huge 2-1 win over that team. No real blowouts. Everything's been pretty close. And in fact, we could even say that he stumbled out of the gate here with a 1-1 draw against USS Sulaco. That seemed like a little bit of shaking off the cobwebs, considering how beat up this Lizardman team is. And then a 1-1 draw against Saskatoon Shiners. This was a real bloodfest on both sides of the pitch, as the Skaven team just went balls to the wall. And another 2-2 draw against Eat Man Things. Although this one was more the story of one-turning rats and how they can pretty much draw anything. And a 1-0 win against the Booze Crews, Motley's Dwarves. Dwarves against Chaos, and at this TV is always a tough match, too. Next up is Animal Farm, coached by Sace. This one is a little bit more on the stacked side, in my opinion, of the two Chaos teams here. I say that because we have a 5-strength Chaos Warrior with jump up. We've got just clear killer, and this is basically the equivalent of Marlowe Smashfield, and only 5 SPP away from Legend. Really excited to see what he gets there. You know, double for jump up would be huge. Even without that, probably getting pro still makes that a great piece. Moses also, same exact skill setup here, but with horns. But so they both blitz at strength 4. Different setup on the ball carrier here. Instead of the agi up, he has the extra arms, which makes it basically an agi up as far as pickups go. Just doesn't have the same dodging capabilities. And he's closing in on Legend too, so we'll see what skill he ends up getting. Probably not this season, but probably next season. Definitely see Mr. Whemper this season. A little bit more guard, just one more guard, I should say. I would like to see these Beastmen get guard after they've got block here. He may go Mighty Blow just because he wants a little bit more oomph on this team, and I wouldn't hate that either, but I think, you know, if he can get up to 5-6 Mighty Blow, that's really going to help him in the playoffs when he starts facing up against some of these other bash teams, orcs, and, you know, some of the big strength teams. So, something to consider. Otherwise, I know he's definitely feeding the ball to these wrestle pieces. He loves and really sees the value now in having a wrestle tackle safety. So, looking for more of that. This is a sandwich kiosk, so no throwing a rock and no getting the ref, which that's a little bit surprising for a Chaos team. I think getting a ref is kind of a good thing for them, just because they get to apply the boot to somebody's head, and throwing a rock, well, I guess if you're always down in fan factor, that would make sense, but at this point you should be starting to stack up that fan factor. In my opinion, throw a rock is really useful to have when you're a bash team with a bench like this, because odds are more likely if an opponent gets removed by a rock, it's going to be a more valuable piece than yours, or it's going to be, oh, yeah, not to get too much into the stadium enhancements, but that's just my opinion. This Chaos record is a little bit more what we're used to seeing, where, you know, there's a lot of losses and draws, and the wins are ramping up this season. 4-4-1. Season before that, we were 7-2-4 and just barely out of the playoffs. One more draw instead of a loss, and he would have been in a tiebreaker situation. 1 point away. And then season 5, he was also in Division 1, but he was 2-5-6, bringing up the rear. What he likes, so I'm told. Big wins for him, of course, getting Cheese Tactics, beating up on them. And then he plays a lot of friendlies, so some of these are going to be a little off, like this Empire Says one. That's a Big O team they played a friendly against. Big win against the Booze Crews. And a big win against Tadpoles in the Big City. They had been rolling just about everybody up until that match, so good on Sace to keep that up. After Sace, we have the Knights Who Said, not Knights Who Say, Knights Who Said Neat, coached by Mistakes. The Knights are down a knight. That's okay. Godfrey the Shadow Knight, who got Legend by trading and seeing his allies die. With Leader, of course, we talked about that skill when we talked about the team. Not a whole lot of other development here. I think they're just trying to hang on dear life. I think this guard is probably something new, but yeah, they do the dump off plays. Dump off team. Pretty fun. Nice strat. I know he's re-rolling. Couple 30-player peasants, 2 rerolls, all in all good. Oh, look at that. That leak started. So the club that they have, same thing, sandwich kiosk. This makes more sense. We talked about Get the Ref being a canceled kickoff event. He doesn't want the bribe stadium because he's already got really, really cheap fouling pieces. As Eisen Mike responded to one of my earlier videos, so that makes perfect sense for why a bribe basically is going to kind of allow his expensive pieces to get fouled, because it's not like they're going to be fouling peasants. And he gets the advantage if there's no bribes involved, because he's already willing to trade these pieces for more expensive ones. At least that's the thought behind it. Overall record for the team was 27, 19, and 28, and considering they've always been in Division 1, that is a really impressive record. This season they're 2, 3, and 3, and they're actually scrapping back into things. They started out really rough, and being able to pick up a couple wins and a couple draws is possibly going to keep them in it. Biggest of all is the big win against Necronomicon. That went really well for them. They also won against Gloom Zoom. So basically, if you are a werewolf team, look out for the Bretonians. Drawing against Saskatoon Shiners and Animal Farm. Those are kind of matches where you just kind of hang on to the edge of your seat and getting away with a draw and not losing all your pieces is a good one. And here's where we were saying that they had a rougher start. You know, losing to the Tadpoles, losing to New Year Norse, and losing to the Men in Tights. So potentially that Men in Tights game could be one that keeps him stays out of things, but all in all, I would say that it's a decent showing from the Knights Who Said Knee on what will probably be their swan song. Saskatoon Shiners, coached by Awesome Dude 54, or as we like to call him, Nose Dice, or as he calls himself, I guess, in chat, Nose Dive. But yeah, this is Skaven team with some beautiful Storm Vermin. We have Mickey Mouse, Block, Mighty Blow Tackle, Piling On, Grab, and Juggernauts. And the other one got the double for Claw, and so he's a Claw Palmer with Pro and Tackle. So obviously, the priority for most teams is going to be getting rid of Spike, if you can. But no injuries on these rats. He has kept them very clean. They either get killed or they get fired. That's very surprising considering this is a Division 1 team. But you do see a little bit of a lower TV, a little less development on these gutter runners compared to Loomies. This strength up is, I think, new this season, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. I just don't remember seeing that. On the diving tackle frenzy piece, so this is a really good marking piece. And that strength up actually does feed into that role too. He just doesn't have a whole lot of guard to support it. But if he does manage to mark the ball carrier with this, that's a genuine threat. Main ball carrier here in Minnie Mouse Jr. with Leap as a recent level, and I like that with the big hand. If you manage to strip the ball loose with either of these players, just have Minnie Mouse jump in there and pick it up and either dodge out or throw it off to somebody else. Lots of dirty players here. 30-player kick I don't care about on the lineman. It's still really cheap, and you're still going to foul with him. You're just going to foul with one of these guys first. Makes perfect sense to me. And no stadium enhancement, which, again, makes sense for Skaven since they are constantly replacing those players. Want to get that cash bank as much as they can. And even if they're not replacing players, they're probably going to spend that cash bank on inducements. So also makes sense that they wouldn't go for the club enhancement. Overall record of the team is 24, 18, and 21. And this season, they are 1, 5, and 2. Lots and lots of draws. Basically, this puts them on pace at 3, 2, and 2 if you count 3 draws as a... sorry. It'd be 2, 2, and 2. Yeah, 2, 2, and 2 if you count the 3 draws as a win. So it's still, you know, not out of things. I think they're right around where Mistays is in the hunt, but we'll look at the leaderboard here in a bit. Previous season, they were 5, 2, and 6. So not the greatest start, but they're, again, competing against some of the best coaches at all. So it that they were down a division, would not surprise me for them to steal a playoff spot there. And I think they're happy with how they're going so far. ED Man Things, nice win there against the Rats that are coming back with their one-turner. And what was the other win that they had? I know they had a lot of draws. Is that their only win? Did they just have one win? Yeah, that's right. So just one win. A bunch of big draws, though. I know they're also inflicting a bit of blood, too. So they're a Skaven team that collects the bounty or two if possible. So if you are still playing them, watch out for the foul. The returning Super Bowl champs, Necronomicon, coached by Horny Cricket, led by a pair of wolves. Hate My Hair, now the legend, got pro on that legend skill, which, you know, we talked a lot about this in the Rumblebee review, basically about pro versus dodge, and I think Rumblebee's regretting not getting the dodge. However, I don't think Hate My Hair is really regretting it, but I haven't watched too many matches of his yet to see if he's dodging out and having to use that pro for other things. Horny Soul, the main ball carrier, really needs to get sure hands, in my opinion. This is one of the few teams that is vulnerable to strip ball. I think that might have cost him recently. Kirkenstein, happy to get block in a match where he got 3 touchdowns against Eisen Mike. Might be a while before we see him get guard. And Shake and Cake is also a recent addition, or replacement, I should say, to this team. But going ahead and rushing guard as well. Grandpa Guy the Fourth with wrestle tackle, and yes, you see that correct. That is pass block. Interesting choice. Interesting. Kick block zombie, block fen zombie. He likes his zombies with skills. Can't say I see that very often on these teams, but if he's getting value out of them, probably worth it to him. But that does keep his TV a little bit higher. We have no stadium enhancement. Overall record of 35, 8, and 13. This is one of the definitely better records that we've seen. Although this season he is 2, 3, and 3. Before that he was, last season, the season he won it all, his record in the regular season was 9, 2, and 2. So he's already doing a little bit worse, but I would say the competition is stiffer than ever. That doesn't necessarily mean he's playing worse or anything like that. It's also dice. Dice do things. Big upset to the Knights Who Said Knee just occurred, but Necronomicon is not without some big wins. Tadpole's in the big city, who at the time, I believe, were at the top of the leaderboard. They got shut down by the Necronomicon and just demolished Eisen Mike. This wasn't even a game. By turn 5, it was done. And that's how the Golem got 3 touchdowns in one game. That's a big statement. And let's see, other matches. Those were draws, so yeah. That's all I got on them right now. Booze Cruise, coached by Motley, the dwarf team, who came into the division last season and really made a statement. Everybody had high hopes for him going into the playoffs and got diced a little bit, but they are back this season, taking a little bit more of a, well, they're trying to play a control game as opposed to a removal game, even though they've got a lot of removal pieces, but they've just got so much stand firm to really allow them that control game. But I think this season, other coaches have figured out their number. I guess going through the pieces here. We've got Tears for Beers, who is quite the removal piece as a Troll Slayer with piling on, tackle, stand firm, pro, being the most SPP on the team. Blitzer-wise, you know your Blodge, firm, tackle, mighty blow, all the beautiful things. Just like one of my blitzers. You got to grab one. And the runners, though, have been taking a beating. And in fact, I believe he had to play one game without any runners at all. And because those runners are having to basically start from scratch, it is having an impact on this team. Those are, the most mobile players on a dwarf team, and losing those really does hurt. Got a couple strength up Longbeards as well, which really helps, especially the Blodge Firm one. Is quite the menace right there. And interestingly enough, we have a kick Longbeard. I can't say I've ever seen that before, but I don't hate it. Kick is such a valuable skill that kind of take it where you can get it. And since this one's already got, stand firm and guard and mighty blow, don't really need another piling on piece. Didn't roll a double. I don't hate kick. What else are you gonna get? Grab? I like this. I like this a lot. They do have a stadium enhancement. They have the Riot and Pitch Invasion. Kickoff events canceled through the security gate. Overall, the record of this team is 28, 17, and 10. So again, a winning team. This season, though, 1-4-3. Not the greatest start, but still technically in it, I would say. So it's not necessarily over yet. Last season, though, 8-5-0. Quite the difference these two seasons have made. And like I said, it's partly the runners and partly just I think the other coaches have kind of figured out how to get around the waist high speed bumps. Big matches, though, there are a couple. There was, let's see here, big win against the New Year's Norse. The Norse have kind of plowed their way through a lot of teams and just done a lot of hyper control, for lack of a better term, where they do a lot of basing and they basically take away option after option after option. And that really does force you to kind of throw risky blocks or make risky plays yourself. And if you fail those risky plays, then they're going to capitalize on you. Well, the dwarfs love taking risky plays because they're just not that risky for dwarfs. And that's just kind of their MO in general. And so being able to get the numbers after a couple turns of that kind of really swings things in the dwarf's favor, and that's how they get the 1-0 win. So that does have an impact on the playoffs for sure. This match right here. We'll look to see what those dwarves can do for the rest of the season. Eat Man Things, coached by Ninja Pirate Assassin or Ninja Pirate Robo or Robot Assassin, depending on what venue you're looking at. This gave a team with the God tier 1-turner. Agility 5, leap, wrestle, movement up, sprint. Sure, he doesn't have sure feet, but if you save a reroll for it, you're probably fine. And I'm sure he's going to get sure feet once he makes legend, which he could this season, but I'm going to assume he doesn't make it this season. The other gutter runners are also pretty freaking good. Got your sure hands, agility 5, and 2 heads. So even if you ignore the sure hands and don't think of him as ball carrier, it's still a phenomenal gutter runner that can pretty much go wherever he wants, considering he's dodging around with basically agility 6. And the other one, always sneaking, is the marking gutter runner with diving tackle, sidestep. And the sacker in the making with 2 heads and wrestle. Really want to see if he goes tackle first or strip ball. Either way, this rat is the menace. Talking about some of the negatives of this team, well, there's no bench at all, and that makes things very hard. Because you've got your natural 1-turner that you just want to protect, like your own living child. And you can't do that without a bench. The other thing it's really lacking is Storm Vermin development, and he's trying his little darndest, but until you can get piling on tackle and claw, Storm Vermin in Division 1 are just going to have a hard time. So as we move on to the stadium, he has Elf Turf at his stadium, which is -1 to armor rolls when taking a fall on a go for it. Since he's got a natural 1-turner, this is like the best protection that he could get for the natural 1-turner. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Statistically speaking, the team is 27, 16, 13. So this is one of the newer teams to make it into Division 1. This season, though, he is 2, 3, and 4. And really, he started out as rough as it could be. And he's starting to make a comeback here. Last season, his team was 9-2-2. That's how he both made playoffs and made his way into Division 1. I believe he made playoffs anyway. The big matches that he's come away with wins are 3-0 win over USS Sulaco. There was one other win he had. Right? This season? Got 2 wins, yeah. This is his other win this season. Oh, over Mennonites. 3-2 win there. So those were some sizable matches. Also big draws against Necronomicon, Animal Farm, and New Day Co-op. Those 3 draws are going to be very significant when we come down the stretch. Getting to the last page here, we've got Gloom Zoom, coached by Fiction. Gloom Zoom started out very strong this season, riding the backs of his 2 Strength 4 werewolves, one of which has Mighty Blow, Tackle, and Dodge. No jump up. I didn't get a double, so I guess that makes sense. If you had Piling On, then you'd want to get jump up. And then the other one is Blodge, Sure Hand, Sidestep. More the ball carrier. Both of them being Strength 4, though, just sets up all kinds of crazy good things. Golems, of course, paying the tax to Flesh Golem tax in order to keep the werewolf strong and healthy. Only block on one, the other very fresh. And the whites, these whites are a little bit more killer. Since he doesn't have a Piling On werewolf, he does have a white that's just pure killer. Jump up, or sorry, no jump up. Mighty Blow, Piling On, Tackle, Dauntless, and Juggernaut, which I really like. Basically, if it's a Wrestle piece or Strength 4 piece, this is still going to be a valuable target, or a valuable killer against those targets. The only thing I don't like is he doesn't have Stand Firm on this one, so I guess he's kind of got just the all-around utility Blitzer there, but I would assume that Stand Firm is going to be next. The ghouls have also been suffering some losses here, and just so you can see they're just as fresh as the golems. And a little bit of development on the zombies. He's got some money, so he could cycle some of these if he wanted to. The block kicker, I don't think you're going to cycle. And of course the guard one's great, so really the only one that you could consider cycling would be Drake if you really wanted to drop the 20 TV for a particular matchup. So I guess I don't really hate any of that. I do prefer wrestle over block on zombies unless they've got guard already. And maybe he's just trying to get that, you know, hoping for the next level to be guard. And that's what he's kind of shooting for there, which I guess makes sense. But generally, I would prefer wrestle. No stadium enhancement here. It is level 2, so he could get the enhancement at any time. He's got the money for it if he wants to do that. It is possible that he had one before and he dropped it. I like to play that way. I've changed stadium enhancements 3 times, just depending on what the stretch of the season has and how much money I have. I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. Well, I could drop my bribe stadium, which I might. Got a game coming up that I might, but something to consider. And he might have done that. He might have had a bribe stadium and just wasn't getting the value out of it. His overall career is 37-8, and this season he is 5-2-1, near the top of the leaderboard. Last season he was also 8-2-3, so in Division 1. You can definitely tell that this team is just very efficient and consistent, considering he made playoffs his first time as a first season Necro team as well, and did crazy good things. So it turns out when you have Strength 4 werewolves, Necro is a really good team. Who would have guessed? Big wins, 2-0 win over Necronomicon. That definitely sends a message. Being able to really punish, you know, some of the lower teams. Tough loss to Knights of Sydney, which we talked about earlier. And then, of course, the big win over the Lizards. Pastry Pests, the 2-1. This is the other one that really is a standout win because it positions him pretty good when it comes down to the end of the season, and when you know that Pastry Pests are going to be clawing their way into a seeding. If it does get to the third tiebreaker, which I'm not going to start that conversation, but if it does get to the third tiebreaker, Fiction will be able to keep Loomy out. Moving on to Cheese Tactics Mark II, coached by Strategic Cheese or Cheese X. Where are we at with this team? So we talked about them a couple weeks ago when we had him on the show. Since then, we don't really have too much more black orc development. They just do take so darn long to level up. You can get a touchdown on this one. Sure, he'd probably get either Mighty Blow or Stand Firm. He takes the long development route. I will say that. So I like to get at least 1 or 2 black orcs with Mighty Blow early, just to try and get them developed faster. And that's how I have one that's on the cusp of level 6, because I went Mighty Blow first on them, and I do consistently blitz with them. If you don't get Mighty Blow on them until their 3rd skill, it just takes them all day to get there, and they may never get there because they tend to die. The thrower is becoming a point of contention because it is armor busted, so it's very squishy. It doesn't have block, it doesn't have dodge, but it's got stats. So very beautiful, interesting piece. If he can make it survive the season and get block on it, I think it'll be a lot better. But I don't know if it's going to make it that long. It's fine in the perfect scenario when you get it in your cage on your offensive drive and all your pieces are there and you outnumber your opponent. But if you start getting down on pieces, this becomes just such an easy target. It almost is a liability. But you've got 2 stat ups, so I doubt you're going to fire it. Probably just going to keep it till it dies. The strength up Black Orc is cool. It's tough getting that as a first level. I think he needs to get Mighty Blow next on this one if he ever wants to see it develop. Blitzer-wise, we've got 1 fresh, brand new Blitzer. This one's Frenzy, Mighty Blow, Juggernaut. You know, the order of those skills you can argue about. I like Juggernaut before Mighty Blow there. What I did on mine. I've also seen Mighty Blow before Frenzy. Just kind of depends on your priorities and what you want to do. The hard part, though, is when your Frenzy piece is movement 5, you are all the more likely to be doing GFIs if you're going to try and surf somebody. You're also all the more likely to be stuck next to the sideline if you surf somebody. And really, surfing is what this piece is about. The Juggernaut really helps with the stand firm teams. You know, you see a lot of stand firm dwarves in Division 1. And just stand firm in general in Division 1. So the Juggernaut really does help with that. But it doesn't really... I mean, it doesn't help that it's on a movement 5 piece. That's all I'm saying. Someday, after you're stabilized, you might consider cycling that one. After you get this one up and going. The other 2 killers, though, are both going to be doing efficient things. You've got your movement up 1 and your movement down 1. But the scale paths on both these is great. And guard lineman, that's movement busted. I guess you just leave him on the line till he dies. That makes sense. He's probably saving up to replace a troll, if I was guessing. That makes sense. There is the Sandwich Kiosk Stadium Enhancement. This is, again, the one that we are starting to see the most. To me, I would never take this as an orc. Throwing a rock is less likely to do damage to me as it is to my opponents. Because it's not a claw rock. I shudder at the thought, but it's not a claw rock. So your AV9 is going to hold strong most of the time. And Get the Ref is great for orcs, in my opinion, because you usually have a dirty player. And, you know, you're usually able to foul something off that's a bit more valuable than you. I've heard the argument that fouling is the most effective way to get rid of orcs. Frankly, I welcome fouls, because A, it's most likely getting you out of position, and B, it's still AV9. You're still going to have to stack a lot of pieces in order to foul me. And you may get sent off, which is a free removal for me. And I'm playing for removals more often than not. So, if Get the Ref event happens and my opponent's, you know, lulled into a sense of fouling me and positioning poorly, I'm okay with that. And they may even roll a 1 on the bribe and, you know, make things really bad for them. So, all in all, I'd never get this one on orcs, but this is the most common one that we've seen in Division 1. So if you're a rookie coach and you're looking for inspiration, this one may be the one for you. Team record 20, 13, 11. This is actually a fairly fresher team than I would have guessed. 3-3-3 this season so far, right in the middle of the pack, still in the hunt for playoffs. Although recently he's been suffering a little bit more of a slowdown, so he might be trailing off. Last season, 7-4-2. Not enough to make the cut for playoffs, but enough to get promoted, which is the position that I never want to be in. If I could help it. I would rather either not make playoffs and not get Division 1, or make playoffs and then reluctantly go to Division 1. I want to go to Division 1 mostly because, well, you've seen these teams, and second of all, it's hard to develop yourself when you're replacing everything. Looking for big matches here. So a 2-0 win over Pastry Pest, by and large, is the biggest accomplishment of this team. And it was a dice factory where everything worked his way. But still, a statement was made for the teams. The other big win was over EE Man Things early on. Again, you're noticing a trend here. Skaven teams that just got obliterated are something that Cheese did very well against. Draws. The third one was over Men in Tights, which involved some passing from orcs, which you don't see every day. But that's a huge scoreline for an orc team. 3-2. Don't usually see those many scores. It's usually a 1-0 or 2-1 game. All right, moving on to the New Year Norse, another promoted team up to this division. We've got the Yeti missing. Let's see what the injury is. Just an MNG. Beautiful Yeti. Point of much discussion with the armor up, but in reality, it's working. Minus this MNG here. This Yeti is still alive. Has a ton of development. Claw, Mighty Blow, Guard, Juggernaut to really help with those blitz plays, and Stand Firm. And he does blitz with this fairly often to position it where he wants. He also, isn't afraid to just move it on 4+ and risk the wild animal, because he's usually positioning pretty well. I think that's something that Warner's fairly strong at. The Wolf Warners are Frenzy, Guard, Block, and he's got a Blodge one as well, so if you get Stand Firm next, I will really, really like that one. This lineman is a little bit of a living legend. Block, Tackle, Strength Up, Shadowing, Frenzy. If you want people to talk about your team, you take Shadowing, especially on a Movement 6 piece. It's not what standard logic would tell you. I like to think of it as poor man's diving tackle. If you have tackle and you get shadowing, and you're at least movement 6 or higher, it can, in a way, function a bit like diving tackle, where you're just making your opponent roll more and more dice, and eventually those dice are going to fail, and, with tackle, that's going to cost them a reroll. And then they'll probably stop dodging at that point. And you've also kind of followed them. It's really, really interesting for positioning. I like it when you pair it with sidestep, but you don't have to do that either. But yeah, people talk about this piece all the time because of the shadowing. And with Frenzy, I think that's interesting too, because you could actually, your opponent could actually give you a surf without intending to if you shadow and follow up on it. The Berserkers, the workhorses of the team, jump up, Palmer, Tackle, everything you want. With Pro, normally you see Tackle before Pro. I think he might have looked at his schedule and thought, I can get away with doing Pro first, and I don't have a bunch of skinks or gutters, and he does have Tackle in other places on this team. Not a lot of it, but he does have it. So maybe that was the decision there. But either way, he's got it now, and he's so close to getting another level where I would assume we see maybe Dauntless, or maybe, I don't know, you already got Frenzy. Maybe Stand Firm. Maybe Guard. Always get more Guard. 1945. Jump up, Diving Tackle, Stand Firm. So this is really, if he can get Dodge, I think that would be the best thing to make this piece more well-rounded. But if he doesn't roll a double, just give it Guard Firm with Diving Tackle. That's fine. Tackle's also a useful skill on this one. He's got a lot of level ups to go, so I'm really curious to see where this development goes on unique piece, but I do like the Diving Tackle first and then Stand Firm right after that. Because this team isn't really built for example, Skaven. The way he wins that is just by purely bashing. This gives him another way to win against Skaven by marking a ball carrier with Diving Tackle. And more diving tackle here with the runner. This is a bit more common on the runner because it's not a double. So you see the blodge step, DT. He's probably going to go tackle next. So he's got a couple different marking threats. And this is funny. So this is actually a lineman, not a runner, despite what you would think if you looked at the skill line. He made it a runner through level ups, if that's even a thing. He got Dauntless first, then he got Sure Hands, then he got Kickoff Return, and a movement up. So on paper, movement 7, Sure Hands, Dauntless. It's a ball carrier. If he gets another level, I'm sure he wants dodge as a double since that is a primary ball carrier, but I would probably expect to see more tackle. The kicker, dirty player. Not a lot of dirty players on this team in general for Norse. That's surprising. But he does have a bench. He's got money. He could pick up another one if he needs to. Seeing that the Yeti's down, depending on the match that he's in, he might. Normally, though, this is an over 2,000 TV Norse team, which is very scary. And it's very healthy, too. I mean, really, only one movement bust. You've got an MNG, but this is really healthy for the amount of games that have been played. And because he's got such high TV, he's using the Magician Shop. So anytime he's at his stadium, both teams get a wizard at no cost. This is only useful when you are a higher TV than all of your opponents. When you're the one getting inducements, this is a very bad idea. And when you're, a team that's a little bit more frail, generally, I mean, I guess he's got a big bench. That's the other reason why this could be useful. But in my personal opinion, and I guess there's one other time where you could use it. If you were playing in a league with, basically if you reroll and you're playing against a whole bunch of fresh teams that don't know how to use wizards well, wizards are something that have a bit of their own learning curve, and so it could make sense to do that. For example, if you're in the Champs Ladder, I see you making a case for a wizard's shop because there's so many people that don't know how to use wizards well. You are doing fireballs on less than 5 pieces, I would say. You're less than 5 pieces. You're probably not doing a wizard well. Yeah. Overall, team's 32 wins, 10 draws, 7 losses. Again, just a huge number of games played for a team that is so healthy. Looking at the matches. Looking for those big wins. Overnight, you said need 2-0. Edie Man Things 1-0. And Saskatoon Shiners and the Booze. Oh, no, that was a loss. Saskatoon Shiners a 1-0. So being able to beat the Rats, and we talked about some of the pieces that they have to beat those Rats. That makes sense to me. An agility-based human team with those Bretonians. Again, that makes sense to me. Where he struggled, it's against those Bash Lizards. The Lizards are not a good matchup for Norse generally. Unless he's got enough tackle, but he didn't. He's got just enough tackle for the Skaven. I don't think he has enough for the Skinks, in my opinion. That was a really close match, though. I did watch that. And I think it could have gone either way. And this Skaven team just put it to him. So, something to consider. Last but not least, Tadpoles in the big city, coached by 130. We've got the block score with Pro. I would have gone tackle because of the synergy with the tail and just reliably removing dodge pieces. But Pro is still very useful as well for all the big guy negatrates. Pro helps cancel that out when he boneheads. And he's got grab there too to help with the 1 turn. Joe Dirt, the killer. Jump up, piling on, tackle. Very, very useful piece. And he's done work. If I was to say, what killer has done the most work in Division 1 all season long, it's been Joe Dirt compared to every other team out there. This is consistently getting removals, which is making it even easier for the Lizards to overpower and control their opponents. But he's not alone. There's a lot of Mighty Blow on this team in general, and they're able to get a lot off of it. Let's check the injury to see if this is a niggle. It is not, just an MNG. Which is a big deal, being down a source, but not the end of the world. And then we've got the movement bust here. I can definitely tell, though, as Stand Firm is kind of a something where when you play other people with Stand Firm, it encourages you to get your own stand firm, and the value of it just, you know, it kind of like spreads like a infection or a drug. Um, so that's why Division One has more stand firm, and there are more seasoned teams. Stand firm something that you get later on, but I would just say that there's a lot more stand firm in Division One because there's so much stand firm in Division One, if that makes sense. These are recent additions and level ups, and I know that that's as a result of playing other stand firm teams and seeing just how darn good it is. And then a break tackle first one, which is actually interesting because he already had another break tackle one, but curious to see where he goes with the development on Toaster. Skink wise, he keeps the skinks trim, and we've got the one turner plus block and sidestep, and that's it. So I'm curious also to see if he develops, you know, any other skinks or gets any level ups or stats that are interesting on those. But he doesn't have to. You know, if this one was back in there, he's 1800. That's really, you know, where your lizards are probably the most efficient at that point. Anything beyond that, they start getting a little bloaty, start giving away inducements that they don't need to, and just start getting punished by those claw teams. He plays in the Weather Dome, which makes perfect sense considering he does not have a agility up skink. If your highest agility player is agility 3 or lower, then the Magic Dome is probably one of the best stadiums that you could get. And really, sweltering heat is extremely bad for the lizard team. Because if, say, for example, a couple skinks have been removed and then sweltering heat removes the other 2 skinks that are left, you now can't pick up the ball. Or conversely, if you've lost a Saurus just to a knockout, which isn't a big deal on its own, but sweltering heat comes and takes away 2 more Saurus, you now have no ability to control your opponents or outbash them. So it's not just for the pouring rain, as you might think. And you do tend to make a lot of GFIs as a lizard team as well, so even the Blizzard's bad. Basically, every single team in the game can benefit from Magic Dome, but I think if you're an Agility 3 team with your ball carriers like the Lizards, it's one that is the best, arguably. 28 wins, 5 draws, 11 losses for this team overall's career. This season they are season 7 they are 5-1-2, which puts them near the top or at the top. Last season they were 9-1-3, and they did make playoffs. Looking at the match history here, Tadpole's in the big city. Got that win over the Norse this past week. And they play a lot of friendlies too, it looks like. Big win over Cheese Tactics, 2-0. And a big win over the Booze Cruise, 2-0 win there. See if there's any other ones I missed here, because the friendlies. Knights of Sydney and the Saskatoon Shiners. They've got some big matches left as well. All right, so let's pop on over to the leaderboard and see where things stand as of today. In number 1 position, we have Fiction at 5-2-1. New Day Co-op and Sace right behind him at 4-4-0 and 4-4-1. So New Day Co-op still has a game to play, and they may end up taking a higher position here. Sace having played his, obviously, already. Behind them is Tadpole's in the big city, 5-1-2, which he could pass when he plays his game this week. Cheese Tactics Mark IV right behind that, tied with Mistays after he gets the big win over Motley, which just happened this morning. Notice if I reference this morning and this night all at the same time, that's because my RAM died in the middle of recording last night. So I had to play with my computer for like 2 hours last night. But yeah, that's a huge win for Mistays, and now really does have him back in playoff contention. Considering there's 4 seeds here, he is really tied for 5th. Pastry Pests behind them at 3-2-3, starting to make his resurgence. Also there's New Year's Norse, still in the running. get into the long shot section. We've got USS Sulaco, Necronomicon, which I hate to even consider a long shot, but they are nearing that territory. Eat Man Things, or I guess they're in that territory. Eat Man Things, Saskatoon Shiners, Booze Cruise, and Men in Tights in the rear. Booze Cruise just rough season considering how well they did last time. It's tough to see them in this position, but reality is you know, people have adapted to their play, and that's also why we're seeing so much more stand firm. Looking at the schedule, big matches still left to play. Necronomicon, Saskatoon Shiners. Which one of these teams will rise to be in contention for playoffs, and which one will be done for the season? New Day Co-op versus Gloom Zoom. This is going to be a battle near the top. See who's going to take first place, or at least be in the running there for first place. And New Year Norse need to win this one. Men in Tights will be looking to make a statement to show, you know, that they shouldn't be relegated. And New Year Norse are still hovering around the middle of the pack. So if they want that playoff spot, they need to stay on their toes there. I do like them to win that, though. They've got all the tools they need. The Yeti is kind of bloat against this team, unless he's trying to take on the tree, which he shouldn't. So this is a good week for that Yeti to be gone. Pastry Pests versus the Tadpoles in the big city. This is a huge match, not only because it's, you know, Pastry Pests playing one of the top teams, but because if the Tadpoles in the big city can win this one, it does close the door quite a bit on Lumi. So I'm curious to see when that one gets played and what the results are. Looking at the following weeks, what we have coming up, Necronomicon Animal Farm. If the Necronomicon win this week, they will need to continue that streak against a very scary Chaos team. So that could be an interesting one to watch. Other big ones, Gloom Zoom, Tadpoles in the big city. Again, two of the top teams fighting against each other. And I think Animal Farm New Day Co-op is the match that people have been talking about all season long. Will Sace finally be able to take the Chaos crown from Kool-Aid? We'll get into those as the coming weeks go on. This is going to cut this, or this is where we're going to cut the mid-season review, though, here. And I will be back to talk about the week matchups, prior week's matchups, I should say, in the normal weekly format with the other two divisions. So thank you everybody for watching. Good luck, coaches. I guess I need to make my playoff predictions before I totally cut it off here. Division 1. Okay. 4 coaches right now that I think are going to get there. I think 130 is going to get there. I think Kool-Aid has to get there. I think Fiction gets, well, God, I'm just going to pick the top 4. I guess I'm going in order, though, I guess. So, yeah, I do think 130 will take the top seed. I think he's, even though he's got 2 losses, I think his team's just done dominating things. I think Fiction will drop a couple games. I think he will make it, though. I'll probably make 4th. Is there anyone that's on the outside that I think am I really going to say Lumi doesn't make playoffs? Sace's season to make it. He's going to make it. I don't think Kool-Aid's going to drop out because of the teams he's already played. But if Sace makes it, that's going to be going through New Day Co-op. Could be the one that's most vulnerable here. 5, 1, and 2. God, it's too cold. It's way too tough to call. I think of any of the ones that are below 4th right now, Lumi is the most likely one to make it in. Of the 4 that are up top, who's the most likely one to not make it? Fiction's in number 1 position, so it's hard for me to say him. Because his team has just been on fire. Maybe it is 130. I don't know. I still like him to win it all. Yeah, I can't make the prediction. I really can't. I'm just waffling around for 5 minutes. This is where having somebody else on the video would have been nice, but I guess I will commit to saying that either Fiction or 130. So one of the 5-win teams will not make it, but the 4-4 teams will both make it. How about that? I just don't know which one. Because I've been really liking 130 to win this whole thing. And Fiction's in a higher position. So, yeah. All right. That's it from predictions. I'm sorry they weren't more convincing. But it's just so close to call right now. And that'll do it for me. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.